and welcome to the Wake podcast. I'm Alejandra Moreno, and I'm back with Pedro Salim, my great friend. He's an immigration attorney, criminal attorney, and personal injury attorney. Yes. And we wanted to talk a little bit about where our fields kind of overlap, and it's in estate planning and probate. So in probate cases, and a lot of people don't know this, sometimes I say we have too many rights in this country, but one of the rights we have is you can leave an estate plan and you can leave any beneficiary you want. A lot of clients don't know that because, especially in South America, they go by the civil code where your estate plan has to go down to your wife, to your kids, the percentages you can't change. You can't leave your house to your friend. It has to be the way the civil code says. Whereas here, you can't disinherit your spouse, but you can disinherit all your kids. You can leave everything to the dog. You can really do anything. And a lot of people don't know that. But in the probate process, if you pass away, whether you have a will or not, whether you have a trust or not, unless you have a specific structure, you're not treated as a U.S. citizen. So you have to pay, depending on what country you're from, you only have a $30,000, $60,000 exemption, meaning everything above that, you're going to be taxed 30 to 40%. Right. So most of the inheritance, just goes. And in the time that you open a probate, you get a death certificate apostilled from another country and you get it back. You have a personal representative appointed. You have a property sold. And then you finally have the money to pay the IRS. Mm-hmm. Months and months have gone by. Penalties are through the roof. Interest is through the roof. And a lot of, the money that these people, they wanted to buy a property in Miami. They wanted to buy a property in Broward just to kind of preserve their funds. Most of it goes to the IRS. So proper planning is so important.
Super important.
And we were talking earlier that there are some of your clients that maybe don't apply for citizenship. They want to maintain their residency because it would be beneficial. Correct. Because they're an investor or whatever it is. So it's so important to work with an immigration attorney if somebody is, whatever their legal status is, to make sure that the proper planning is done.
Absolutely. Yeah. We always recommend to our clients, if you're able to become a U.S. citizen, do it. We do have some clients that, for example, we have some very wealthy investors from other countries that come here to invest in a company, and they tell us, look, I don't want to become a resident. I don't want to become a citizen because I don't want to have that tax implication, because when you come here and you work here and you get your residency, you have to pay taxes of not only on what you make here, but what you make abroad. Right. So sometimes it doesn't benefit them.
Right.
But what you're talking about, that's very interesting. I didn't know all that. Obviously we work in very different fields of law. So my question is, if the person passes away and leaves all this inheritance to somebody who's a resident, how quickly do they got to pay taxes on that? Could they hire an attorney like myself to make them a citizen within a year to then avoid having to pay those taxes?
So the beneficiary doesn't have to pay taxes. The estate does.
Got it.
So we have somebody, for example, from South America. They bought a condo in South Beach, and they just used it whenever they came into town. But they're not a resident. They are, from a country in South America. They pass away, and that apartment was in their name. Now, their beneficiaries can be in their same country. They don't have to be U.S. citizen. Now we have to open up an estate so that we can sell that property and pay what's called a 706 NA. It's the form for the IRS. But like I said, the process is very long. If that person had a certain structure, they could be treated as a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
If they were a U.S. citizen, their exemption is, right now, it's $14 million for a single person, $28 million and change for a couple. But if you're not, then you only get your $60,000 exemption, and then anything over $60,000. So if you have, let's say a $100,000 apartment, just to make it easier, $60,000 is your exemption amount, and then that $40,000 is going to be taxed between 30 and 40%.
That's huge.
So what you're leaving the heirs is not much. Once you pay the attorney's fees and plus all of the interest and penalties that accrue during all the time where we're just trying to get a death certificate from South America and we're trying to open up the probate process, sell a property, have the cash to now pay the tax bill.
Correct.
It ends up being even a lot more than
So when you do these plannings for these clients that are residents and have all these investment properties and beach apartments, what do you tell them? Like, hey, why don't you become a U.S. citizen? Why don't you do this? What do they tell you?
Sometimes they don't want to become a U.S. citizen. They don't live here. They live in South America. They just have property here.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a kid that moved here, so they bought them an apartment in New York so the kid can go to University of New York, and then they just never sold it. They just kept it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the issue. They're not looking to become an American citizen.
Got it.
But there are certain structures, depending on what country you're from and where your property is, that can be put in place where even though you're not a U.S. citizen,
Yeah.
your property is treated as if you were, and you're not taxed.
Got it.
But there are some people that citizenship just is not beneficial
It's not
because their
beneficial.
tax implications is going to be too much.
Or their country doesn't allow dual citizenship, so they don't want to give up their country.
Of
So
course,
yeah.
of course.
So, and right now, that's one of the things that's hot right now. And Trump just announced recently, I don't know how it's going to happen, but basically he's threatening that you cannot have dual citizenship. You have to pick one or the other, or you lose it.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's going to fly, or I'm sure that's going to be litigated in court, because a lot of people have dual citizenship
Yeah.
from the United States and Spain or
Yeah.
Italy, and they do business in both countries. They have properties in both countries. So it'll be very interesting to see if that does come through. But yeah, I can see how that has a huge tax implication for your clients that are not U.S. citizens.
There was a window, I want to say it was like 10 or 15 years ago, where Spain was allowing people of Spanish descent to become citizens.
Still is.
And it still is.
Yeah. You have to prove that you have a direct line of relatives, whether it be your grandmother or grandfather, that were born in Spain, to be able to get your dual citizenship.
So
I know a lot of people that did it. My in-laws
Yeah,
did it
yeah.
recently, and now they retired and they live in Spain. So
nice.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a way of getting your citizenship in Spain if you have family that came from there.
But then if that changes, they would have to give up one of the,
That's going to be very interesting to see if that happens or
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
which, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
us. Thank you all for being with us. And from ASM Law Group, preserving what matters most for those who matter most.